course the Bible is enough if we mean, is this God's complete, infallible revelation of his word and his will? Yes.
Yeah.
100%. That's our stance. We go to the mat on that and don't budge. That also does not take into account the fact that we are fallible, imperfect ourselves. So it's more about the receptors, right, than the transmitters in this case. The transmission is perfect.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to These Go to 11. Once again, I'm Nathan Bell. Joining me as always, Greg Dutcher. Greg, what's going on, man?
Dude, I wonder how many people are watching now saying, I never knew these guys were that good looking.
4.
Yeah.
And that's just 4 people watching. Nobody's saying that they thought we were that good looking.
Dude, are 2 of those names Lisa and Joy?
No.
No. Yeah.
I can tell you unequivocally, no.
Yeah,
no.
I'm thinking probably not, dude. Probably not. But if you notice we're both wearing our official headgear. You don't need to, dude. You got a nice full head of hair under there.
Yeah, but we it's early in the morning when we are recording this, and I woke up and that full head of hair looks kind of nasty.
A little rough.
Yeah,
me too, dude. Yeah. I mean, the chaos going on under this hat right now, dude. My hair is parting slightly to the right, and I like it to go.
I thought it was right down the side. I thought it was like Moses crossing the Red Sea.
Dude, it's like Cousin Eddie. Clark, I mean, if something happens to my plate, my hair ain't going to look right. So just changes my part.
Bingo.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, did we start with our official video launch with a reference to Christmas Vacation?
Well, what else would we do?
It's October, dude, right? We're getting closer.
We are getting closer. Yeah, we're super excited because, again, we have this video format that we've just started. As you can see, the studio is up and done over the weekend. Yeah. I posted a video of where things were, and so now everybody gets to see it live and in action.
Yes.
Very excited about that.
Me too, dude.
And we're looking forward to our first one. We're book month.
Book month, dude. I was going to say, we don't normally look like such scholars.
Right. And we never will again.
And no. And people will learn quickly how unscholarly we are once we start talking.
That's right.
Because, dude, we're talking. Now, are we talking about Stephen King's The Shining? Or are we talking?
I thought we were talking about The Shack.
Right. Dude, there's much I could say there. I'll just say which book is scarier, but that's a whole other subject matter for another day. But yeah, I'm excited, dude. We decided to kick off talking about books.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever done a podcast on books. We've had authors that have talked about their particular book, which usually goes with their bio and their message.
Yes.
But I don't think we've ever actually talked about books in general.
So an addendum to that.
Yeah.
These Go to 11 has, you and I have not.
Oh.
Steve Hartland and I did one years ago.
Who's that guy?
Right.
We don't talk about former hosts, current pastors in the area.
I thought they were like kings and queens of Narnia. Once a host, always a host.
Yes, dude. You know what? I vaguely remember this. So a different iteration of this podcast has tackled books.
But we are doing something different because what Steve and I ended up talking about were books that we really enjoy and recommendations.
Right.
You and I are going to do something a little different today, which we'll get to in a second. But first, just want to mention the importance of reading books because there are certainly people out there who are of the opinion, well, I have the Bible. What else do I need?
Yeah. Oh,
and
sure.
That's just not accurate. God intended us to be learners.
Yes. And from time to time, I will talk to people that say, isn't the Bible enough? That's a bit of a loaded question. You have to be really careful how you answer that. Can you imagine if I said no?
Yeah.
What? It's heresy. And of course the Bible is enough if we mean, is this God's complete, infallible revelation of his word and his will? Yes.
Yeah.
100%. That's our stance. We go to the mat on that and don't budge. That also does not take into account the fact that we are fallible, imperfect ourselves. So it's more about the receptors, right, than the transmitters in this case. The transmission is perfect.
Yes.
God's word to us is perfect. Our ability to hear, process. Think of how many times Nathan Jesus says things like, him who has ears to hear, be careful how you listen.
Yeah.
It tells us that Jesus is not saying there's any defect in his message.
Yeah.
But there's a defect in our ability to understand it. So I understand, particularly young Christians, you want to, I think, really help them have a trust in the Bible.
Yes.
That they're reading truth from heaven.
Yep.
And you don't want to take that away. I balance that with still, God has given teachers.
Yes.
You go to Ephesians 4, right? You've got apostles, prophets, shepherds, teachers, pastors, etc. And I tend to view books, dude, we were just talking about this before the cast, as never dying teachers. Like we've got John Bunyan, who I think has been dead for some time. Hundreds and hundreds of years, who wrote The Pilgrim's Progress.
Yes.
This book is still teaching.
Yes.
It's still instructing important principles. And, some of these authors are alive.
Yes.
Some are not. But their books are essentially timeless.
Yes.
So to me, I put this on the category of, why do you go to church? Why do you listen to a sermon?
Yeah.
Why do we have our children go into, a children's ministry setting?
Yeah.
What are they doing there? Well, they've got teachers, really good teachers here, that are imparting truth, helping them understand it, coming alongside. I think books do that for us.
Oh, 100%. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago, and one of the things that he and I talked about was the idea that really before the Bible was available for everyone to have, right? Either on their phone or in an actual physical copy of a book, you learned by gathering together and teaching one another.
Absolutely.
Right. And so I think the principle is still true. Honestly, I think the danger is when somebody takes their Bible and says, I can go through this thing alone and know everything I need to know.
Yes.
It's just me and the big three, right?
Yep.
No, the teaching is very important. We see that in the very foundation, really, of Israel's history in the Old Testament. When teachings would happen, they would gather the whole nation together to do teachings. And then we see that in the New Testament, where they would gather the congregation of the church together to do teaching. It was never expected that you were just going to take this off by yourself and that was going to be it.
No. And in the Ezra-Nehemiah era, when the remnant of God's people have come out of Babylon, gone back, you see that there's the big teaching moment where the scriptures are being read to the entire assembly, and it says the priests, the elders of the land, are going to different groups to helping them understand, I believe the term is the sense of what they were hearing. Dude, that's teaching, that's exposition.
Yeah.
Do you understand what was being read? Do you understand why this matters? And so, to me, that's a great picture. The Word of God is being read, and the teachers are circulating.
Yes.
Now, we run into some sacred ground here, because one of the hallmarks of the Protestant Reformation was the Bible for the everyday person.
Yes.
And of course, you've got Luther's grand work being translating. When he's in Wittenberg for 2 years, basically hiding out in a castle. If you read about the church history, that he's dressed like a knight at one point to, be undetected by the authorities. It's incredible cinematic stuff. But he would say his greatest accomplishment is that he translated the New Testament into German.
Yeah.
So I understand historically we're people that like our independence, right?
Yeah.
We're Americans. We love those stories of the Bible in every person's hands, and it's a wonderful gift. But that never negated the role God has for the shaping of the community.
Yeah.
So, dude, how many people have come up with some strange stuff when it's just, I love what you said, me and the big three in the Bible. We've had some snake handling churches that are born out of things like that.
Yeah.
We've had, I remember one guy, I never met him, but I met a man who attended a church in Kentucky. It was a little independent church, but it had 30 or 40 people there. I think they may have met in some rented space, like a hotel lobby or something.
Yeah.
And this guy was a Calvinist, so he had a strong predestinarian theology. And he actually believed, the pastor of this church, that God had elected him to be condemned. So he had pre-decided that he would be condemned, but that God was calling him to still preach the gospel to the elect. So he would... I'm trying to be so professional dude, now that we're on camera. He would literally preach, the word of God, the gospel, believe, and was now I am predestined to be a reprobate. I will be glorifying God by suffering in hell for all of eternity. And this dude had a little following. So I mean, again, the shaping influence of a Christian community, would not let that happen. No, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, what about other scriptures, like the qualifications of a elder, pastor?
Yeah.
I think being a believer might be one of them.
Right.
Might be one. And if you think you're not a believer, but dude, I remember when this friend of mine, Jim, told me this, I thought, wow, there's actually people there that are in a little life rhythm of going to a church where one guy with his Bible and his independently drawn conclusions is teaching some really bizarre stuff.
Dude, and that illustrates the point so perfectly, right? That no, we are meant to be in community together and learning, and that learning that should happen in your home church, right? That should happen there, but that learning also happens with great theologians and scholars as well. Right, where you're not just going in. You know, many of these men, and we can even add women. We don't have any books by women. Sorry, ladies, but
I'm going to get some, dude, because you said that. I've got a bunch in my office.
We've had many women on here. Elise Fitzpatrick, who does a phenomenal job.
Well, and she's such a good author.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a great interview.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, she's upper echelon interview. She's always so dynamic and lively. But dude, the amount of women that are writing things today. Part of that is, let's be honest, we're looking at some books that come out of history.
Yes.
Some of these are very ancient.
Yeah.
Like Pilgrim's Progress is centuries old. C.S. Lewis, we go back, now 70 years or more.
Yep.
To a time where women were not writing, so it just wasn't, and I'm not supporting that. I know you're not either, but it was just sort of the way it is. So often, Lisa will point that out to me, dude, and she says, boy, there aren't many women that you quote. But I've said most of the books that we ever bought in seminary, all the resources were written by men.
Right.
That is changing.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, on all levels, popular levels, I think it's been changing for a while, but on academic levels, one of the most profound articles I've ever read actually was from the 70s. Mm-hmm. And it's a finer nuance point on 1 Timothy 3, Titus 1, the qualification of elders, written by a scholar named Susan Foe.
Okay.
And if you look, most people that address the subject of complementarianism, egalitarianism, deep end of the pool here stuff in terms of essentially about the role of women in leadership is what it comes down to. At some point, whether they agree or disagree, quote Susan Foe, because she really wrote a groundbreaking article in the 70s, which very few women were doing.
Yeah.
But yes, these teachers help shape us. And I always say, dude, when I do sermon prep, I think I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
To me, it's an exercise individually in what the church should experience corporately. In other words, I start with a scripture.
Yep.
And when I'm working on a passage, I read that passage multiple times during the week.
Yep.
And often I listen to it on the Bible app when I'm right. I just want it in my head.
Yeah.
I want it really there. So I know exactly what I'm talking about this week. I've read it a lot, listened to it a lot, starting with the Bible and just sort of like a tea bag, just letting it seep.
Yeah.
And meditate. Then I write down some observations I have. Sometimes they'll make it into the slides.
Right.
Here's something I wrote this week. And it's usually a question. If Jesus is doing this, then why ...
Yep.
And the last thing I do once the outline comes, as you and I have talked about, is I go to the commentaries.
Yes.
And the reason I do that, number one, it feels really good when you're like, oh, wow. A lot of what I've seen, the commentators are saying.
Yes.
That happens, I'm happy to say, more often than not.
Yep.
And then on some other occasions, and I've told you this, I mean recently, where I'm like, oh my goodness, 4 commentators are pointing out this word that's used 7 times in the span of, 3 verses. It's probably an important idea.
Missed it.
Dude, I've completely missed it.
Yeah.
And it's humbling.
Yeah.
But that's where the teachers are helping me. They're reining me in, right?
Yes.
These scholars that have studied and immersed themselves in Scripture and Christian reflection, and then I benefit.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we benefit.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Which leads us into our episode for today, which is books we've cooled on and books that we have replaced those books with. So we initially were going to call this, what were we going to call this, Greg?
Underrated, overrated.
Books, yeah. Underrated, overrated.
Sounded a little too haughty.
Yeah.
As if we have the inside scoop.
The insight.
I mean, we do, don't we?
Well, always.
Right.
That's who we are. I mean,
somebody has to make each other feel great.
That's right.
We'll just do that.
But we came to the decision that books we've cooled on is better, because the books that we're going to be talking about, while we've cooled on them for one reason or another, and we'll talk about those reasons, they're not bad books.
Sure.
Right? So it's subjective. If I think this is an overrated book, someone might take this and be like, what are they talking about? This is a fantastic book. The other thing with that is, with books that I've cooled on, I may have cooled on them now, but at some point I may go back to it because, I'm at a different point in my life, and things have changed either in society or personally for me. So maybe the book doesn't apply to me as much, but maybe I'll get back into a situation where, oh, wow, this hits home, right? Yeah. One of the examples of that, we'll start, C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. Fantastic book. That book has been helping people understand and discover Christianity, to fortify their faith for decades.
Yeah, like close to 80 years, I think. It's incredible.
It's dated, though. It was written during World War II. Actually, it wasn't written. It was initially a series of radio.
They were radio addresses.
Yep. And then they were kind of compiled. It was 3 of them, and then they were compiled into the book Mere Christianity.
Yep.
A fantastic book. For where we are right now culturally, there are things that just don't seem to necessarily apply in the same way that, let's say, a book like Tim Keller's book, The Knowledge of God,
or The Reason for God. Yeah.
The Reason for God would apply. And even Keller, before he passed away, was saying that he wished he updated it, because what he did when he wrote it back in, 2000?
It's the early 2000s, because I was teaching it when I taught at the school you now teach at, dude, many, many years ago. I taught apologetics as you have taught it. Or are you teaching it?
Teaching it, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Current. It was the go-to book, was The Reason for God. And it was very helpful. I had several students, as I'm sure you have, comment on it. But it's interesting, isn't it? So it's a 20-year-old book.
Yeah.
And Keller, who died about a year and a half ago now, was saying it needs a refresh.
Yeah.
Think about that, dude.
Yeah.
That a book that he felt, and now he's going to be humble, we would read it and say it's incredibly helpful still.
Right.
Just as Lewis's 80-year-old book is helpful.
Right.
But I love the humility to acknowledge culture changes.
Yes.
Therefore, how we address and respond from a position of Christian defense will change.
Yes.
The truth doesn't change. Nobody's saying that. But the way we address it and the way we apply it. And let's face it, dude. Actually, it's true for Keller and Lewis. The explosive growth of movements and conversations reflecting human sexual expression.
Yes. Yeah.
The whole LGBTQ plus topic and related topics everything from gender reassignment surgeries, all the things. Sometimes they creep up in our political discourse, etc.
Yeah.
C.S. Lewis was not addressing that.
Right.
Tim Keller in the early 2000s was not addressing that.
Right.
So culture changes, culture shifts. And then, sometimes you look for a new book.
Yeah.
Is anybody talking about this? Recently, dude, a parent who has a child who's come out as gay in the last maybe year or two asked me for some resources on just, hey, I'm a parent. I love my kid. My kid has come out as gay, or my kid's moved in with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and it's created a whole new set of what do we do when they visit, and these questions that so many families are dealing with. Dude, even 20 years ago, there weren't many resources.
Right.
There's a lot of resources now.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, really good.
Yeah.
And in the past, think about it, dude, having done a little bit of writing in the past 20 years or so, you write, you submit a manuscript, you wait.
Yeah.
You get an initial interest, you wait. And then it's accepted, you wait. You turn in a manuscript. It's edited, you go back and forth for a while, and it comes out. That's just the pace of publishing. It tends to be slow.
Yeah.
So it may be 3 years or more from the time, I penned it, till anybody sees it. It's getting a little faster now because of other mediums.
Yes.
Right? There's digital marketing, digital publications, blog posts, podcasts.
Yep.
So information can get out a little faster.
Yeah.
Books still, just by definitions of what they are, Stephen King calls them portable magic.
Yeah.
You can take them anywhere and they can always speak to you, but they do move a little slower.
Yeah. No, 100%. So books we've cooled on and why. I'm gonna start with two authors that I've cooled on.
I think we've got them represented here somewhere in the stack.
Yeah, somewhere in the stack. And so these two authors I've cooled on for various reasons. I'll go into those. The first one I'll start with is Ravi Zacharias. Anybody who knows Ravi Zacharias and has followed him, aware of the intense sexual scandal that came out after his death, actually, is really when this exploded and came out. I have cooled on his stuff, not because I think his stuff is bad. I think objectively can look at it and say, wow, these things that he's writing about are very helpful. There is truth in here. We have Jesus among other gods.
It's great material.
Yeah.
It's great material.
But in light of the sexual scandal, and if I hand this book to someone and say, man, check this out, right? This is a good book that you would want to check out and read. I don't know where that person's coming from in their life. And so if they start getting into Ravi Zacharias and then they start reading about the scandal and the issues that he had with the sexual abuse and all of those things, that could really quickly turn someone off, not only just to Ravi Zacharias, but also to me as somebody that they would go to ask for advice or help with reading material, things like that. And so I think it's better to just say, you know what, I'm not going to go there, because I think, again, there are others that do what he does. I think he did it very cleverly. I think he did it whimsically. But when you're looking at someone who really you want to put forward as, hey, check this person out as, a moral teacher. Well, okay, we're not going there.
Dude, I couldn't agree more. This book I read, grabbed it from the shelf today when we met, and the subtitle is "The Absolute Claims of the Christian Message," and it's Jesus among other gods. It's very always going to be timely. It's sort of saying, in light of the multitude of religions, why Christianity? Why does that stand out? That's always going to be a relevant, consistent concern. Yeah, when the church is interacting with a watching world. Yes, that's going to be a very normal, natural question. When people bring that question to me, I say, "That's a great question." Yep. You don't denigrate it. You don't mock it. I think it would be invited. What is it about Jesus? And then you get to talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
And what makes him unique. So that's essentially what the book does. Great stories, great quotes, great materials. I would never hand that book out.
Yep.
For the same reason. I say in a million years. Fortunately, I don't have that to have that dilemma. For the same reason.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, one of the challenges we deal with this in an apologetics context. What do you do when the person who's been influenced by the messenger finds out that the messenger was living radically contrary to his own teaching and his own claims? Now, internally, these things are hard.
Yeah.
I knew a lot of people that saw Ravi, supported Ravi, read Ravi's books. And again, they were very helpful. But now that person, as you said, starts reading it, and one Google search.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
And what's one of the knocks on Christianity? I don't think this is always fair, but it's imperialistic. It's hypocritical.
Yep.
It's about people that have money and power that want to tell you how you need to live. And now you've got a very detailed story of Ravi's kind of secret life that is just out there for the open. I remember reading the full report, and it's an uncomfortable read when they hired an agency to look into it and investigate the claims. So you see a book like that and you think, well, here's what I do, dude. What other authors and books are addressing similar materials? And we have many, fortunately.
Absolutely.
And that one would not be one I'd use.
Yeah, and just, to kind of give that counter, I mean, again, Lewis's book, Mere Christianity, right? The section that he deals with Lord, Liar, Lunatic.
Right.
I mean, that's gold.
It's timeless.
Right.
It really is. Yeah.
Still used today. Just a logical, cohesive argument for why do we think Jesus is who he says he is?
Yeah. And what I love about that argument that Lewis gave us 80 years ago plus is it forces in a non-coercive way.
Yeah.
What you just said, Nathan, a logically deductive way, it forces a decision.
Yep.
And it's this idea that Lewis was encountering, which we still encounter. Yeah, I think Jesus was a good teacher. I'd put him in the upper pantheon of, Gandhi and Buddha and Muhammad and Jesus and, whoever else you might want to throw in there. A modern motivational speaker. Tony Robbins, Brene Brown. I put him up there as a important luminary. And Lewis said, come on.
Yeah.
He said, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
And he forced you to consider, if you read what Jesus says about himself, he's either a liar.
Yep.
He is sincere, but is out of his mind,
crazy,
lunatic, or he's who he said he was.
Yeah.
Dude, when has that gotten old?
Yeah.
I'm not sure there will ever be a time where that is an irrelevant argument.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we talked about Keller, The Reason for God. He uses that in his book.
He does, yeah.
And so it is. It's just a very timely, clever way. And so, there are other Christian authors that are addressing these issues.
Yeah.
And, many others that I would hand them. Alistair McGrath.
Yeah.
Is I believe he's
an Oxford scholar.
Oxford scholar, who also addresses.
What's that guy know?
Right. Many of these things, from John Lennox, who's a brilliant mathematician, Christian mathematician, addresses these issues as well. And so,
Great
the origins of
too.
God. I mean, any of those guys who have that accent, that British accent, right?
What is it about the British accent, dude?
Right.
That makes a dude or a woman sound 10 times smarter.
Well, I mean, that's why Game of Thrones was so popular, right? I mean, because if you put that, in Alabama, people would just be like, well, there are some dragons over there.
Look at them dragons, bro. We got to go after them dragons. That's all due respect to our Alabama listenership. We should localize it and say, hey, look there, man, there's a dragon there, hun.
That's right.
I saw it down by the bowling alley there, hun. There was them dragons was coming in and they was burning up everything. Shout out to our Dundalk listenership.
That's right.
We love you. We love you.
I need to address something here real quick because I had raised my seat up so I didn't look like a little child at the kids' table. Apparently,
have you been sinking, dude?
I'm officially sunk. Like I'm almost on the ground, which is why I had to pull my microphone off the table.
I kind of noticed a little shifting there. I think what you're saying, dude, is I'm waxing eloquent. You're just feeling smaller.
Right. I feel like the little kid at the Thanksgiving table, like, hi, Dad, could I have some more?
Yeah. No more rolls, son.
That's right.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that, dude. There's probably a lever there somewhere, but
but I adjusted it once and then it started sinking on me again, so I'm not going to mess with it. Although it could be entertaining for the rest.
Do you remember, dude, when I said, "Why don't you sit in that chair?"
Right.
I may have known that. I'm the one to sink, dude. I've got a little extra height, but yeah.
Anyway, just had to bring that up so our listeners don't look at it and like Nathan's moving around a lot.
Yes. But dude, we've cooled on Robbie.
Yeah,
I'm with you, and for very definitive reasons why. Yeah. Who else?
So the second person that I've cooled on, and I say cooled on, I have not appreciated this person as much as I've appreciated others.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point now where I probably won't read anything of his again.
Yeah. I know who you're going to say, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, the shark.
Johnny Mac.
It's Mac the Knife. Okay. I don't know if anyone's called him Mac the Knife until it happened here.
That's right.
On the These Go to 11 podcast.
Maybe it'll catch on.
I know.
So John MacArthur, you and I used to talk about this, Greg, because he was one of those teachers who just in your formative years was just so good for you. And
incredible.
The way he exposited scripture and the things that you learned from him were incredible. Again, I would listen to other people that I thought were, I always found him, I don't know why, I always found him to be kind of arrogant. I thought somebody like Sproul was just so much more humble the way, and it could just be their tone of voice and the way they spoke.
I get that.
But, I don't know either of these men personally. Of course, Sproul passed on several years ago, but I loved listening to Sproul on the radio. I did not enjoy listening to John MacArthur on the radio.
Sure.
And lately, with so many of the things that he's come out with in terms of the way he dealt with COVID, the way he dealt with, we just a few weeks ago did one on mental health and his thoughts and views on that.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
The grace and humility I feel like is just not there at all. And so for that reason, I'm just like, again, I think there are other great expositors out there. I mean, John Frame, who is just brilliant, has written so many things on so many different topics.
A former guest.
Yep.
John Frame is up there now. I mean, he's got to be well into his 80s.
Yep.
I would think. And I think I'm with you, and I'm going to say something to one of our watchers, viewers, and or listeners, or both, who served with me on the elder team and is a big fan of Johnny Mac.
Okay.
Hang in there, my friend. Please don't stop watching.
Right.
Because we love you. And I understand it. I mean, a couple of things about John MacArthur, and somewhere in the stack, dude, I can't see from this side because all the covers are out there. We've got a book or two of his. Yeah, The Gospel According to Jesus. That was one of his more controversial books. This is one of the first kind of substantive Christian books I read.
Okay.
I want to say it came out around 86, 87. I probably read it by like 89.
Okay.
I was in college. I was like a freshman or sophomore. And I actually appreciated it was one of the first books I remember where it was, there's a lot of scripture in here.
Yeah.
A lot of scripture, and I won't get into the argument that he makes. That could be a series of podcasts, the whole lordship discussion and debate. But I remember reading it, and it kind of put me onto him. And I remember the radio station back then was called RBS.
Yep.
Long before Shine FM. And he was a regular teacher.
Yes. Yep.
Published a number of books. Some of those books they barely count because I can tell they're just sermon notes that an editor has assembled and put together.
Yeah.
But some of these, like a book like this, is when you could tell it's his sort of deliberate thought process on a given subject, right?
Yep.
And he's carefully constructed an argument. You can tell it's his book. He's written many, and there's a lot of good stuff. He was a teacher. He got to his church in California in 1969.
Yep.
Just said, I'm going to go verse by verse through the New Testament. That was his goal. It took him several decades to do it.
Yep.
He, for various reasons, he's more of a New Testament preacher. He's done some Old Testament stuff. But, you know, he has become sort of the standard bearer of expository verse by verse preaching.
Yeah.
I don't think the best definition of expository preaching is verse by verse preaching. I think it involves that, but it's more, but again, another podcast, another topic. One of the things I loved about him, dude, as you know, is he actually shaped me more than anybody to not bring politics into the pulpit. More than anybody.
Yeah.
And I've listened to some great teachers, you know, Alistair Begg is still one of my favorites. The Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Dude, that brogue, it's so good. But he's a very, very good teacher of Scripture and very faithful to the Word. I love his pastor's heart, too, that comes out. I've been to a number of conferences where he's been. MacArthur would not go political. He would not. Just wouldn't do it. In recent years, really particularly since COVID, I've seen a definitive shift.
Yeah.
You have to, where he's gotten very political. He's been very outspoken about candidates, etc.
Yep.
The comments on mental health, that's the one we did. In case you're tuning in, didn't see it, he's got a little clip we played where he said there's no such thing as OCD, ADHD, PTSD.
Yeah.
I think things that, again, in the consensus of Christian thinkers, people that love Scripture, love the Word, love the tradition of the church, would say, "Come on, John,
right?
You're overstating this. And we when we did our podcast on it, we said, what is he pushing against? And I think we agreed. Yes, we are not probably an overly therapeutic culture.
Yeah.
Yep. We tend to think, oh, you got a problem, there's a pill for that. Well, there isn't a pill for that. You know, and ultimately everything does come down to us before God.
Yes.
But the other side of that is, well, we live in a day and age where advances have been made. We know more than we used to.
Yeah.
There's some really important helps. I mean, if there was a movement that said, we don't need a polio vaccine because we've got God in the Bible, I think we'd be in a very different place as a country. Right. So, yeah, I've cooled on John MacArthur as well. A lot of people, you know, still buy his books, listen to his sermons. Hey, we're not saying not to do that.
Right.
We're just doing a podcast.
Right.
Where you have a reason that you would cool on certain authors, certain books.
Yeah.
And in both cases, Ravi and now MacArthur that you've mentioned, dude, we have very current cultural concerns.
Yeah.
They're very different.
Yep.
You know, we're not in any way saying MacArthur's been involved in a scandal.
Right.
Like Ravi was, but that can affect your lens.
Yeah, well, particularly if you know, we had one of our listeners pass that podcast that we did about MacArthur on to his daughter, who is in the mental health care profession.
Yes,
and you know, lovely young lady, follower of Jesus. Very strong opinions about MacArthur because of what she has seen and observed in her profession. Yeah,
she reached out to us, which was really good to hear her take.
Yeah.
Because it's a frontlines take.
Yeah,
it's somebody helping people. Mine is more of well, I guess, we're all frontlines, dude. You're a teacher, I'm a teacher. But, you know, when you're really, my main thrust in life is to help people with mental health problems. You're going to see a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if you're a parent or a friend of a family, you're going to hear a lot of things. And I actually think, dude, it hurts our credibility with a watching world.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Go out into, if you could get everybody from the stadium at the Ravens game and grab the mic. And for some reason in this fantasy, they give you 5 minutes of attention.
Yeah.
Go share things like, hey, just wanted to share. So I don't think there is any such thing as OCD, PTSD. Right. Tell me how that sits with a large group, probably a lot of Christians and non-Christians in that group.
Right.
And I have my reasons, my suspicions why things have shifted. I'm not qualified to psychoanalyze anybody, but I would just say it's okay to cool on books.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, if we guard our hearts and, we're not on a crusade to malign people or something. We say, I don't want to read their stuff.
Right. And again, that's why we changed that title to books. In this case, authors, these two in particular that I've cooled on. Because it doesn't mean that I'm like giving up on them at all. It just means that right now, for one reason or another, I am not going to utilize their materials in my teaching or or I'm not going to recommend them to others.
Yeah.
So
I've got one, dude.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and shift these.
I'm a little bit worried that a lightning bolt is going to come down on a brand new, beautiful studio.
Right. Or a mob is going to come in and drag you away. So if Greg all of a sudden, gets picked up and carried off, you'll know why.
Yes. And I'm seeing if I have a note, and I don't, or not that I can pull up quickly, but Pilgrim's Progress, John Bunyan.
I'm gonna back away a little bit here.
I know, dude. I've cooled on it. I really have.
Yeah.
Largely because it's just incredibly antiquated language.
Yeah.
And at the risk of offending, dude, you are a classical Christian educator. I am not saying, I think I'm not in any way, for a long time, this is outside of the Bible, like the best-selling book.
Oh, right? Yeah. I think it still might be number 2
it might be
in the top 10 at least.
20 million copies in print as of this edition, which is probably 30 years old.
Yeah.
So who knows how many millions and millions of copies there are. I reread it about a year and a half ago, and there's some great scenes in there.
Yep.
Really, really good scenes. Again, I can't imagine giving this to like a younger believer, somebody that just came to faith with no background. It would be one of the last books I would give.
Sure.
I recognize its place in history, but it's just a difficult book to get into.
Yeah.
It's an allegory.
Yep.
Of the Christian life, the Christian journey. And, Pilgrim is setting out to the celestial city.
Yeah.
It's heaven, and that's the end game. And you get it. And all along the way, the slough of despond, Vanity Fair, Doubting Castle. Part of it, dude, is cultural.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something that is going to make me look like the most unspiritual person ever.
Yeah.
And you're like, Dutch, you've said way more unspiritual things. And I probably
will. At breakfast.
I'll say more after this thing. Honestly, dude, for a generation that has been shaped by Kevin Feige and the Avengers, it doesn't hold.
Yeah.
And again, it's cultural.
Sure.
I don't know if there is going to be a radical revolution of 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds that are like, man, have you read Pilgrim's Progress?
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to recognize the reality that it's even the journey. It's so didactic.
Yeah.
In terms of look at this principle, look at this principle. It's not subtle.
Yeah.
Which sometimes, dude, if you watch something, okay, I remember when I watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, yeah.
Having no idea that it's a modern retelling of the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Homer's Odyssey. And then when I had that, oh my gosh, it all makes sense. John Goodman with the patch on his eye, he's the Cyclops.
Yeah.
Right? The women that are calling out to George Clooney, et cetera, they're the sirens, right? And it was subtle. You look back and you see it. This is very obvious.
Yep.
It's very in your face. And Bunyan was a wonderful man of God.
Yeah.
Incredible commitment to Christ. And I think this book, God has used him in this book to serve millions of people around the world.
Yeah.
So all the props.
Yep.
I'm talking about 2024.
Yeah.
I'm probably not grabbing this book to give to somebody.
Yeah.
And if you do, I would give it in a contemporary language.
Yeah.
But dude, even the contemporary language version, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think that's fair, right? When you look at it and you see, what he's doing in there, there are other books, and again, the ones that I'm going to mention really at this point are probably coming toward the end where we need to say, okay, we need some new material, right? But you think C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
Lewis did not write those as an allegory.
Right.
He explicitly states that. But when you look at The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the journey of a believer, right, and what that looks like, I mean, it's a beautiful picture.
Sure.
It is still current and relevant today. You can understand the comparison.
I think it's much more relevant today than this.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. And so, seeing that again, it's not the same, right? It's not a one-for-one comparison.
Right.
But if you're going to give a book to a believer and say, hey, check this out, you're going to do The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe as a fiction book over Pilgrim's Progress.
Yeah, no doubt.
And again, I think, if we're talking about an allegory, maybe it is time that we get a new one.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's fair to say, that, okay, this doesn't quite hold up and we need something new and something different.
Dude, exactly. And I just think there's no shame in that.
Yeah.
You're thankful. As the old adage and cliche, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
You'd be standing on Bunyan for what he did in his time.
Yeah.
It was groundbreaking.
Yep.
It was really brilliant to take a medium and infuse it with clear Christian meaning.
Yeah.
That has been read all over the world.
Yeah. And it also doesn't mean that if you haven't read it, you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one of those things that I would say, again, we've cooled on it. We can say we've cooled on it because we read it.
Yeah.
Right?
In fact, dude, I go back to 1996. I was in seminary, graduated in 97. So I was about a year shy. And I needed a course. And David Dunbar, who was our president at the time, brilliant scholar, basically jumped in because a professor was battling a long-term medical need.
Okay.
So they had to scramble, cover some classes that he normally taught. And he did one called Christian Classics. Dude, loved it. We sat in a circle. It was about 15 of us.
Yep.
And we read Thomas à Kempis' Imitation of Christ. We read Mere Christianity by Lewis. We read Pilgrim's Progress. I mean, it was a lot of reading in a one semester term. I remember going home,
right?
Catching up, and that's when I first felt it. Dude, this is back in the mid '90s, 96, and I remember I felt like the kid in the Emperor's New Clothes.
Yeah,
like. I don't like it that much, but I wasn't going to say it because, it's Bunyan.
Right.
I mean, there were some good, I still remember a few things. I remember I can't remember which character, but it's pretty chilling. Guy gets to the gates of the celestial city, and it's sort of reinforcing the, I never knew you.
Yeah.
And a passageway opens, and he does not get in.
Right.
And Bunyan says, and I looked, and behold, I saw that even at the gates of heaven, there's a doorway to hell. Ooh, dude, to this day, I'm like, man, that's pretty chilling. So it's not as if there's nothing that sort of captivated me. I'm trying to be fair. I remember when they come to Vanity Fair, I sort of like the line, what will you buy? The peddlers are kind of looking at them suspiciously, and they say, we buy truth. And there's nothing here, and there's a hostility in the crowd. Oh man, it's a good picture. I think it could be done better. If there's one version to read that we did use with our kids, I think I got this recommendation from Matt, and there's a kids version called Dangerous Journey.
Okay.
It's very condensed. Yeah, leaves a lot of the detail out. And it was. I remember. I think the Sam and maybe Ben kind of digging that as well.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as Goodnight Moon.
Yeah.
when they were younger, when they read that.
Yeah.
Or the Curious George books that my Ben loved. So that's one I've cooled on, dude.
Yeah.
And I know we're wrapping up. I'm sorry if I've gone too long on Pilgrims.
No, that's good. And just want to say, if anybody's looking at the books, these aren't necessarily books that we've cooled on. We were also bringing out books that we were going to recommend. But again,
this will be our prop for October.
Yeah. So, this has been good. Look forward to maybe doing more of these.
Yeah.
Greg, maybe we'll make October our book month.
I like it.
Maybe we'll, every year we'll come back and we'll do our book month in October.
I like it, because and then we can talk about current books, etc.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about, I'm looking forward in the coming episodes to talk about books that are maybe not as well known.
Yeah.
But have had a profound shaping influence.
Yeah.
On us and others. Maybe some books that are kind of reconsidered. I thought these were horrible.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not as bad as I thought. There's a couple of there in the stack I'm looking at now that one in particular I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
but next week we have Almost Great.
Yes.
Almost Great. So we'll talk more about that next week, but next week's title, Almost Great. So, Greg, till the next time, we just rock the Casbah.